Hello, feral friends and fellow nature nerds, and thank you for tuning in. This is Dirt Dispatch number 56, and I'm your host, Tim the Nature Nerd O'Hara. So the other day I was riding my bike, and I was well outside of town here, and I spotted a bird that I didn't recognize. And that's always kind of exciting, you know? I love my common local birds, blue jays with their harsh calls, nuthatches hopping headfirst down the trees, red-winged blackbirds calling from the marsh grasses, killdeer pretending to be injured to lead me away from their nest, meadowlarks on fence posts singing their complex songs, and all the rest of them. But something new? Well, that's a chance to learn something. And how could I even call myself a nature nerd if that didn't get me excited, right? The bird was maybe a little bit bigger than a typical sparrow, but smaller than a robin. It was mainly black, but it had a distinctive white patch on its wing. So, with the help of the Merlin Bird ID app, which on a side note does not sponsor this podcast, though maybe they should consider it. Anyways, I was able to identify this bird as a Lark Bunting, specifically a breeding male Lark Bunting. And once I started to learn more about them, it made sense that I had never identified these birds before. I had probably seen them and just not known it. Because females, juvenile males, and males outside of the breeding season all look just like big sparrows. I had just never spotted a male in his breeding plumage. Lark buntings are endemic to the grasslands and shrub steppe of North America. They occur nowhere else. And here in Wyoming, we're pretty much right smack in the middle of their breeding range. These birds spend the winter in the desert grasslands of Texas, northern Mexico, and Baja California. Now, like other sparrows, lark buntings are omnivores and feed on seeds, invertebrates, and some fruits. From spring through autumn, insects make up a greater percentage of their diet. Studies in Colorado estimate that about 2/3 of their summer diet is composed of invertebrates, and young are fed mostly insects. In pursuit of these insects, lark buntings are agile and versatile predators, stalking, then chasing them down on foot, pursuing them in flight, females more so than males, and gleaning them from vegetation. One study actually found that males foraging on the ground moved more slowly than the females. Like other sparrows, because I mentioned that before, because they don't just look like sparrows, they are a species of New World sparrow. Foraging lark buntings take seeds while feeding on the ground or strip seeds from grasses and other plants. Now, the males arrive on the breeding grounds earlier than the females, and they begin to establish territories where suitable nesting sites, which is basically shade-providing plants, are plentiful. During this time before the females arrive, males frequently sing a flight song that has more pauses and harsh notes than the songs that they'll sing later in the season. This different song seems to indicate aggression towards other males as the males establish their territories. Males that clash early in the nesting season also communicate aggression by flicking their wings, ruffling their feathers, or contorting their bodies. Females also show aggression towards other females that enter their territory, and in a few cases, observers have seen lark buntings chase other species of sparrows that approach their nest too closely. Now, once the females arrive on the breeding grounds, the males show off to attract a mate, either singing from a perch or with an impressive song flight where they ascend rapidly, then glide earthward, singing as they slowly descend. This is similar to the displays of some Eurasian lark species, and the reason why they have lark in their common name, even though they are not, in fact, larks or even related to larks. Females select the nest site, normally a small depression at the base of a shrub, cactus, or large clump of grass, something that will provide cover and shade. She indicates her preference by scraping that site with her feet. The nest, a loose cup made of grass stalks, fine roots, leaves, and stems, and lined with fine blade grasses or hair, is built by both sexes. The female lays 2 to 5 eggs, which hatch in less than 2 weeks. The young are helpless when they hatch, but they develop quickly and leave the nest less than 2 weeks after hatching. And lark buntings generally hatch 2 broods per season. Also, while they're socially monogamous, they're not necessarily reproductively monogamous, which is something fairly common in birds. Now, what's the difference, you ask? Well, social monogamy means that they form a pair bond, share a territory, and help their mate raise the young. Reproductive monogamy refers to extra-pair coupling, mating with another individual other than the one they formed a pair bond with. With lark buntings and a lot of other birds, extensive extra-pair mating has been observed. The end result of this is that the chicks in any given nest might have different dads, and it basically helps keep the gene pool strong. Now, because their territories are relatively small and therefore close together, some people have assumed that lark buntings are colonial nesters that don't hold individual territories. But that's not the case. Although the fact that they nest close to each other does result in kind of a loose colony, which in turn results in some interesting domestic arrangements. For example, in areas where males outnumber females, unmated males seem to serve as nest helpers, bringing food to the young at the nest, sort of a lark bunting au pair. It's also interesting to note that the criteria females use to choose a mate is radically different from year to year. In some years, females might show a preference based on the male's black coloring. Other years, the size of the wing patch, or size of his beak, or some other characteristic. The consequence of this extreme variation of female choice from year to year is the maintenance of genetic variation of several different characteristics in the male. At the end of the breeding season, lark buntings gather into flocks to migrate, which they do both diurnally during the day and nocturnally, going southward to their wintering grounds. Now, lark buntings are still fairly common, with an estimated global breeding population of around 10 million. But that said, their numbers have fallen by an estimated 86% since 1970. And if that rate of decline continues, we'll lose another half of the lark bunting population by 2033. Extensive changes to both their breeding and wintering habitat may be to blame for the lark bunting's decline. They can nest successfully in altered habitats, but they do it at a lower population density than they do in intact grasslands or sagebrush. They also might be negatively affected by pesticides used in agricultural fields. Now, one last cool thing about lark buntings. An observer in Kansas during the Dust Bowl in 1937 noted that while other wildlife had all but vanished, lark buntings not only nested successfully, but actually increased in number. This led to the assumption that they may be able to survive periods of drought without drinking water, getting all the moisture they need from the grasshoppers and other insects that are their primary food source in the summer. How cool is that? And on that note, my feral friends, we'll end this Dirt Dispatch. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to support the podcast, here's how you can do that. Become a patron. Subscriptions start at just $5 a month, and with 3 paid months, you get some very cool Dispatches from the Forest merch. You can find all the details at patreon.com/dispatchesfromtheforest. You can donate using PayPal or Venmo, and my email address, dispatchesfromtheforest@gmail.com. You can also use that email address to email me with questions, comments, or requests for future episodes. You can donate using the Cash App and the hashtag ForestNerd. If you prefer to send a check, just shoot me a message and I'll happily provide my mailing address. Check out the merch store at cafepress.com/shop/dispatchesfromtheforest. Click on products and find something you like. Finally, follow Dispatches from the Forest on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. I'm your host, Tim the Nature Nerd O'Hara, reminding you to go outside and get dirty. Dispatches from the Forest recognizes that the lands where we live, work, and recreate are the traditional homelands of the eastern Shoshone and northern Arapaho people. We understand that this land holds immense significance for the original stewards, native nations, and peoples of this region. Dirt Dispatches is a production of Dispatches from the Forest and may not be used or rebroadcast whole or in part without express written permission.